Hello and welcome back to another Royal Reviewer transmission. Today is post-coronation day. It is the 7th of May 2023 and I am still reeling from the whole coronation day yesterday. There was, as I said at the end of yesterday's video, and if you haven't seen yesterday's video, I did a big review, my initial review of the coronation. And what a day it was. I said that it was going to take days, possibly even weeks, to sort of digest and process everything that we saw at the coronation. So if you want to see my initial reaction, go check out my previous video to this one. But today I'm doing a follow-up of some of the things that have come to light since. And of course, some things happened whilst I was making the previous video that I want to talk about, in particular with regard to Prince Harry. Also, in my excitement and bewilderment yesterday to come and get yesterday's video to you guys, I forgot all about decorating my set. So I've put up today my bunting. We have the Royal Standard, we have the Union Jack flag behind me. So we are a little bit more dressed. I'm also still carrying on the coronation theme. I'm wearing the kind of royal purple with the flower basket brooch. I'm still not over the no tiaras yesterday, so I had to bring them back. So we are wearing the Greville or the honeycomb tiara, a favourite, firm favourite of the Queen. The Queen, not the consort anymore. She is a Queen consort, but we can call her officially Queen Camilla now. She always was, but now it's okay to say it. It's okay, people. So let's get straight into it. I should also be munching on my bow tie because I did say a few videos ago that if there were no tiaras at the coronation, I would eat my bow tie. And unfortunately, I am on a diet, so I'm going to have to go back on my word and not and not eat my bow tie. But it just goes to show how shocked and surprised I actually was when there was no tiaras. I'm not dissing the flower headpieces. I loved them. I thought they looked amazing. Also, one of the things I've got to talk about, which I'll actually bring up now because it's naturally fallen into the conversation, is that perhaps people have pointed out there's a big similarity between the late Queen's bridesmaids headpieces and the one that Catherine wore. So was Catherine trying to kind of hark back to that glamour, those glamour days? Was she paying tribute to the late Queen? They are very similar. I wouldn't say they're exactly the same, but they are very, 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 very similar. I'll let you make up your own minds on that. But I thought that was an interesting thing that was pointed out. It didn't register to me at the time that they looked very similar, but actually looking back on reflection, if I post a photo side by side, they do look very, very similar and familiar. Was it by design or was it by coincidence? I'll leave that one up to you. The first thing I want to talk about, which of course I wouldn't have known at the time because there wasn't time to look. And on the TV, whether you were watching it on TV, news, or on the internet, they didn't zoom in on Camilla's dress. Now, we knew that there was symbolism, there were the emblems of the four nations of the United Kingdom represented, but there were also some personal touches. And I just think this is really, really, really lovely. There were actually two little doggies on the bottom. And of course, they were Jack Russells, and in a nod to Bluebell and Beth. And of course, they were rescue dogs from Battersea Dogs Home. And of course, the late Paul O'Grady was really friendly with the Queen when, of course, she was Duchess of Cornwall. So, and she also appeared as Queen on one of his last Battersea Dogs programs for the love of dogs. So her love of dogs, is unrivaled. She really does love them, and I think it was so nice and touching to have them represented in such an actual prominent place. I mean, from a distance, as I said, you don't really notice that they are doggies, but when you look up close, they are definitely Jack Russells, and a loving and touching tribute to someone who is loving and compassionate for animals. So I thought that was a really lovely touch too. Also, there were lots of family names embroidered into the piece, including Gus as well. Gus was the the grandson that broke his arm, unfortunately. Anyway, I didn't really see much of the broken arm, or at least I didn't notice it terribly too much at the coronation. So I thought that was just lovely to pick out the family name. So Camilla really did have her family with her on the day. They were also in the congregation as well, but physically on her dress, they were very, very close. And it just goes to show how much Camilla does value her family. Of course, she still has her home, Ray Mill, which is not a million miles away from Highgrove, and she does still use it as a family retreat. It's her family home. It's a place where she can kick back, have the grandchildren over, have the kids over, and just be a mother, be a grandmother, away from all the pomp and the circumstance that she now finds herself in. So I thought that was lovely. Now, developing as I was making that video yesterday, I was wondering whether or not Harry had actually gone back to the palace to spend an hour or so with his family, talking to them, maybe being involved in the photographs that were being taken after. I thought at one point I saw someone who looked like Harry, but then it wasn't. So I did wonder, had he gone straight to the airport or back to Frogmore Cottage or back to the palace for a bit? No, it turns out that he actually left immediately after the coronation. He hopped in a black vehicle and he actually had a police escort to the airport. And I think that was probably part of a burgeoning deal with the police and the United Kingdom government, because remember, it's not the royal family's say, it's the government's say, and the police when it comes to protection. And I think part of the deal is that if he attends a public event on behalf of the royal family, a royal family event, he gets protection. And I imagine the deal is going to be that if he's over for personal reasons, for his own work, just to visit, that he pays for security himself, not the police protection, but he brings his own over. So we don't know that for sure. That is me speculating, but it looks like on the last few occasions that he's been over, he has had escorts. And of course, he's only been over for the more formal events. So yes, that's what I'm thinking the sort of blossoming working arrangement is likely to be. But we will see. That argument is still going on between the UK government and of course Prince Harry. So he was whisked off straight away to the airport to Heathrow, and newspapers picked up almost immediately what kind of flight he would be on. I think it was the 3:45 flight back to LA. And yes, I think that was the one that he was on. So he would have made it back home to LA in time for Archie's birthday. In the evening, I think it would have worked out as. There would have been a drive from LAX, I think it was, back to Montecito, but someone said that there was also the potential of having a flight from the airport too close to Montecito, or even in Montecito. I don't know. So I think he would have made it in time. He spent around about 28 hours in the UK. It really was Harry in a hurry, in a major hurry. He didn't have any time really to spend talking to family that were there other than what we saw him doing. Of course, I think Princess Anne had a friendly word. He was speaking, of course, to his cousins, Beatrice and Eugenie, and their husbands, Jack and Edo, and a few other family members as well. But there wasn't the time or the scope to go into kind of deep conversations. We also saw lip readers were obviously analysing everything inside the Abbey. And they did say that he was talking, and he did kind of say about, emotion sort of going off, leaving. I think the words 3:45 or 4 were sort of mentioned. The flight was about 10 minutes delayed, I think, but that made no difference. Anyway, he was off. He was seen at the airport. He was still wearing his suit. He was still wearing his medals. And the one thing that I am going to have to talk about, and I think I'll do it now because it kind of leads straight into it. Dior posted basically an advert. Harry came to the coronation as a walking advertisement. Dior posted, I think on Twitter and probably their other social medias as well, a picture of Harry wearing his suit saying tailoring fit for royalty. Is Harry directly cashing in on his royal connections? I know it's Dior posting it, but tailoring fit for royalty. Dior is honoured to have dressed Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex, for the coronation of King Charles III in a custom design by Kim Jones. So this is not a coincidence. Harry didn't just pick a Dior suit off the rack and then Dior is going, oh, you know, he wore our suit, let's promote it. It was a custom piece. So they are in cahoots. They have been working together. By Kim Jones, seen arriving at Westminster Abbey, gain an insight into the savoir-faire of his three-piece suit next. And it goes into more detail. So this is an example of Prince Harry directly attending a royal event off the back of basically being a walking advertisement. He would have probably got that suit for free. He probably would have received some kind of payment for it. Dior know that, you know, as soon as people are aware that it's a Dior suit, it will probably sell or it'll help the brand. That is directly, in my opinion, using your royal connections to for your own personal financial gain when you have left the royal family. It's a pretty sad state of affairs, I do think, and I wasn't shocked, but I was surprised that he would choose to do that at his father's coronation. Is that the whole reason he came? To be a walking advertisement? Because there were also other photos of him kind of glaring at William. I mean, you know, there were photographs of him being happy and smiling and talking to other family members. But there was also this one shot of him literally, you know, side-eye. It was a glare. It was a glare at William. We don't think that Harry and William had any chance or opportunity to talk to each other. So I don't think there's been any kind of reconciliations. And Harry certainly didn't stay for the photographs after. He most definitely didn't stay for all of the big lunches going on today. So if you are attending a coronation big lunch, please let me know how that went on in the comment section below. And of course, tonight we have the coronation concert as well. So he didn't stay for any of that, which I thought was quite sad. He was straight off. And then also we got news leaked out of Montecito from somewhere saying that Meghan had spent the day on a low-key birthday for Archie. So if there was no big plans, if there was no big party, no big extravagance, if it was quiet and private, why couldn't Meghan and Harry have come over with the children to say a final farewell to Frogmore Cottage and attend the coronation? And then Harry wouldn't have had to have done this Harry in a hurry dash. They kind of used, I think, Archie's birthday as a huge excuse. I said it before, I'll say it again. I do personally think it was a huge cover story, really. I mean, not really story because it was Archie's birthday, but it was used as a cover. It was a deflection from the real reason that Meghan just doesn't want to come. Maybe she doesn't feel that she would have been welcome. Maybe she thought she would have had a bad reception. Harry didn't get booed. There were no boos. There wasn't. It didn't look like there was anything particularly frosty from the royal family. The frost seemed to come. I mean, it was so frosty. That glare was so frosty. It almost came from Siberia. I mean, come on. The only frost was really coming from Harry towards certain individuals. Anywho, he's back in Montecito. He made it in time for Archie's birthday. So all is well, I'm sure, in the Sussex camp. Let me return to some other things that I've got. Oh, by the way, we are still on parchment and quill. We are. I also want to talk about Harry's face being partially obscured by Princess Anne's hat. I did mention it yesterday, but some people I left you all wondering, was it by design or was it by coincidence? It was another one of those situations. And one comment stuck out in my head. Someone said, well, if it hadn't have been for the candle at the late Queen's funeral, you know, you'd think it was coincidence. But perhaps there's been a few occasions now where there's been things obscuring. Was it by design? I mean, they would have known. The planners would have known what uniform Anne was wearing. That's quite simple to see and to work out. So whoever placed Harry, I think, must have had a slight knowledge that perhaps his face would be, at certain times and angles, obscured by Princess Anne's hat. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I'm sure that will be an open-ended debate that will go on. Also, some people noticed that Harry kind of bowed his head as the king walked by and stopped singing the national anthem. I didn't notice that at the time. I did notice him bowing, but my eyes were so far fixed on what was going on, I didn't really look to see Harry's mouth moving. It did appear that he stopped singing the national anthem, but I looked also at what part of the national anthem we were on. Everyone knows, I think, the first part of the national anthem. It's played all the time. But the national anthem is a lot longer than just the first verse. There are many verses, including crushing rebellious Scots. Yes, that will get all the Scots fired up, won't it, my loves? Not many people know it, and I actually think that probably Harry forgot the words or didn't know them in the first place. I think he would have known them at some point, but I think he just forgot. It looked very much like all the others had rehearsed, and of course Harry had no opportunity to attend any rehearsals. He might not have even known that it was going to go into the second verse. We don't actually know what the level of correspondence between Montecito and London actually were. So I just think he forgot. I think he bowed his head, maybe to obscure the fact that he forgot. And I think that's the most plausible explanation for it. I've already discussed the glare at William, and I have called it a glare because I think that's what it is. Also, I speculated that perhaps there would be some kind of mention on the day to recognise Archie's birthday from the king, obviously being Archie's grandfather. As far as I can see, there wasn't anything. So yes, there wasn't anything. Also, someone said that they spotted the Grim Reaper at the coronation. There was a silhouette. It was a clergyman. Of course, it was a clergy person. I can't tell if it was a man or a woman or whatever. But there was a clergy person who was silhouetted in the doorway, and it did look a little bit like the Grim Reaper. But it wasn't. It wasn't, my love. So don't get fired up thinking that there was some kind of bad omen. There wasn't. Also, the rain was not a bad omen. It actually rained on the late Queen's coronation day. And look what a successful, long and happy reign we had with the late Queen. There's also this amazing photo, not photo, it's an animation type thing, of the Queen in silhouette handing over the crown to the king. And I thought that was quite poignant, and I will pop a photo of that up on the screen. The next thing I want to talk about is the arrival times. Some people are speculating, and I saw a whole article dedicated to the Cambridges being late to arrive. And I actually don't think that it was that. I remember watching it and thinking, the king's almost at the Abbey, and we've not seen the arrival of the Prince and Princess of Wales and family. And I thought, what's going on? There's something amiss. And I said, have I missed something? And no, sure enough, the King's procession arrived before the Prince and Princess of Wales. And I thought, is the King early or are they late? And I remember looking at the time, and at the time I thought that the King was actually early. And that this is very unprecedented because the timings are normally of military precision. So I thought, that's odd. Anyway, we carried on with the coronation. The Waleses arrived shortly after, and there was a bit of a kind of where the king had to wait, and then they kind of went in. Anyway, it was a little bit odd and peculiar. So when I read the article last night, basically blaming the Cambridges, the Waleses, for being late, I thought, my initial gut feeling is that the king was early. So I went back onto the BBC airing of the arrival. And when it panned out, sure enough, I could see Big Ben. So I took a screenshot, which I'll hopefully put on there for you now. And the screenshot clearly shows to me, it's a little bit blurry and out of focus, but if you zoom in, you can see that it's roughly about 5 to 11 when the king arrived. The king was supposed to arrive at 11. That's when proceedings were supposed to begin, upon the arrival. The king doesn't get there early to be there for the arrival. The arrival is normally military precision. So 11 p.m. a.m. That is when he should have arrived. I think he was about 3 to 5 minutes early. In which case, normally, obviously, there's an order of precedence. The Waleses would have arrived about 3 minutes. The aim would have been about 3 to 5 minutes before the king arrived. So it all kind of leads me to think that the king was early. There was a problem and an issue with the king's procession. Think about it. Over the length of the procession, if the horse's hooves were going just a little step too quick over the duration, it could have equated to about 5 minutes. So I am going to go out on a limb and call it that actually the king was early. So I'm going to exonerate the Prince and Princess of Wales, because there was all this wild speculation saying that maybe Louis wanted a wee and that's why they're late, or maybe they had a fallout and an argument. To be honest, the Prince and Princess of Wales couldn't have looked, any more lovingly towards each other. I saw lots of loving glances. So I'm going to call it, I think the king was early, and it was a problem and an issue with the king's procession. And this is not normal. They're normally very, very good at the arrival time. So a bit of a mix-up, but it all turned out okay in the end. They very, very quickly sorted it out. So there we go. Next. Oh, that Dishy Aquari. Oh, isn't he Dishy? Oh, he's gorgeous, isn't he? He normally wears that kilt. Major Jonathan Thompson, age 39. Well, he's been making people hot. I'm going to give him a fan flap. I really am. A hot fan, because he's been making lots of people flap. I think lots of ladies and gentlemen need a bit of a cool down. Because he is really hot, isn't he? Anyway, he was there, and of course he sent pulses racing, not only in the kingdom, but around the world as well, around the Commonwealth, just everywhere. Hearts were racing, but sadly he is taken, ladies and gentlemen. So you can't get your mitts on him. He is off the market, but he did look good, and I thought he deserved a little mention as well, because people were talking about him on social media. I also said yesterday that obviously the Abbey is kind of divided by that big wooden screen. And I said that people in the part that's closest to the entranceway wouldn't be able to see much because of the screen. It turns out that I was wrong. So hands up for being wrong. But there is a good reason why I was wrong, because apparently very, very discreet screens were in that section of the Abbey. So discreet that you couldn't see them when they weren't being on. So when all the focus was past the screens, apparently these screens were somewhere around the pillars or hidden sort of behind the pillars. You couldn't see them. I could not detect them at all. I will be looking a bit later to kind of see if I could just about pick them out. I couldn't see them. They were very discreet, but they were there. So people in that section of the Abbey could indeed see what was going on screens. So I thought I would correct myself there. So there we go. I was correct as well about Chris Jackson. He was the man in the background of the balcony appearance in the doorway, taking those behind photographs. And sure enough, those photographs did come out. They were published by the palace on their social medias. They were spectacular pictures. I can understand why they had them done. So Chris Jackson did a really good job for Getty Photos. And but it was still annoying. It was still annoying seeing him in the background with the camera, but the results were amazing. I don't think it was he who took the official photographs behind the scenes. He was just doing the kind of balcony photos. So at the moment of making this video, we don't have the official photographs from inside the palace. If they'll probably come out today sometime, so I will speak about them when they come out. But I imagine they're going to be spectacular. I'm not entirely, probably taken in the throne room. I'm going to speculate upon, possibly the ballroom as well. Who knows? Maybe even in the garden. I'm thinking perhaps Charles, the king, would want something a bit more naturalistic. Don't know. But there were screens inside the Abbey, and Chris Jackson did take those photographs. And you can see obviously the detail on Camilla's dress from those photographs. Now, I found an article with some things that we all may have missed from the coronation, so I thought it was quite nice to kind of go through them. Some of them I've spoke about already, so I'll kind of flick through. You may or may not have noticed that there were two rather large topiary trees outside of the Abbey entrance. So, and they were yew topiary trees. And they are actually going to be replanted in the garden at Sandringham, which will be open to the public as a lasting reminder of the day. So Sandringham is open when the royal family are not there normally. So if you do visit, you will be able to see those trees. And I just thought that was a nice touch. Sustainability. I do believe the trees used at the Prince and Princess of Wales's wedding were also replanted elsewhere. So but not in a royal family property, I don't believe. We've spoken about the spectre of the Grim Reaper, so we'll scoot over that one. Now, I did actually notice what Charles was wearing on his feet, and they were actually slippers, but they're not like slippers that you wear around the house. They were opera pump slippers, handmade by Northampton-based Gaziano and Girling, who used Swiss calf leather. The leather on the soles came from a tannery in Devon, which uses ancient methods. The silver buckles were commissioned by the Goldsmiths Company and were modelled on a pair worn by George VI. So very much George VI, the king's grandfather, was kind of threaded all the way through the ceremony. The king was wearing George VI robes that had been kind of repurposed, and there was obviously a makeup of the shoes, because I imagine George VI and the king might be different shoe sizes. Otherwise, if they were the same shoe size, I imagine he'd have probably worn the same shoes, because everything is kept and stored away for conservation. So I thought that was quite interesting. One other thing I do want to talk about. Now, we spoke a lot about dress and sort of ceremonial outfits. The one thing that still sits with me and doesn't sit very well is the king's trousers. I still think, and I maintain, that the traditional breeches, stockings, and those amazing ballet opera slippers would have looked better than trousers. I kind of think that the trousers almost took you out of the moment. The robes are so elaborate that just a pair of trousers, even if they're fancy military ones, just didn't do it for me. I would have preferred to have seen the breeches. So I'm going to throw down the gauntlet. William, if you are watching for your coronation, please bring back the breeches, because I wasn't a fan of the trousers. I speculated ages ago that trousers might take you out of the moment, and for me, they did. They fell a little bit flat. I'm sure the king felt more comfortable in them, but I just think it would have suited the whole outfit to have the breeches and tights. Anyway, I did comment on the blue in the manes of the horses pulling the carriages. It looked spectacular, but there's a bit more detail come out. Apparently, they were made from recycled plastic bottles, weaved into the manes, and were part of a tradition which began at Queen Victoria's coronation. Charles chose royal blue, his mother's favourite colour, and I'm still calling it that the royal family order for King Charles will be blue based. I'm pretty certain. So that they were just a few things that I thought. Oh, one more wonky orb. So you may or may not have noticed that the orb that the king was carrying had a bit of a wonky cross, and I'm not quite sure why they haven't fixed it, But apparently it happened in a very interesting way. It was actually dropped in 1671. I'm sure many of you, me included, were thinking, what if Charles drops the orb? But apparently it was dropped in 1671, which was the English Civil War. And Irish-born Colonel Thomas Blood, you may have heard of him before, swapped sides to fight with Oliver Cromwell. But when Charles II returned to the throne, Colonel Blood became one of the most wanted men in England and tried to steal the crown jewels from the Tower of London. During the botched heist, the orb was dropped and damaged, leaving the cross still crooked. So they haven't fixed it. They literally did not fix it. I don't know what. Maybe it was an ode to history. I don't know. Sometimes things are better left. For example, the coronation chair is full of graffiti from over the years. People etching their names and words in. They haven't ever tried to, plane it out or anything of that nature. So that could be the reason why. There was also the Diamond Jubilee State Coach, included wood salvaged from a royal yacht, Henry VIII's royal yacht, the Mary Rose. I didn't know about that. One thing I also forgot to mention was the gospel choir. They were absolutely outstanding. They were the Ascension Choir, and it was really nice, as lots of people have commented on the diversity that was seen inside the Abbey, and it really was magnificent to see. Don't forget, there was a gospel choir, the Kingdom Choir, at Harry and Meghan's wedding. So perhaps the king, witnessed that and thought, oh, I might want a bit of that one day. And it was really nice to see them. It was really joyful. I think that's one thing that you get from sort of gospel church music is it's not just the amazing vocals. And of course, every person singing in the Abbey had an amazing voice, from the choir to the individual singers, that amazing Welsh singer in the black suit. But gospel, they put so much soul into it. I mean, everything is really joyous. The movements, they were dancing as they were singing. It really lifted your spirits, and I think that was one of the moments that was very uplifting. Some people have said that the whole service was a bit gloomy. I didn't get that from it. Don't confuse. It's very easy to confuse solemnity, being solemn, the solemn occasion, because don't forget, at the heart of it, it was a solemn Christian sacred service that also embraced other religions and faiths and traditions. But it is supposed to be solemn. But the injection of the Ascension Choir really lifted and injected a sense of spirit into it. So I was really thankful of how the whole music was just amazing for the whole day. So yes, a big shout out to the Ascension Choir. They did an amazing job. And there we go. That's all the little kind of bits and pieces that you may have missed. So I'm going to leave the video here for today. I think I've spoken about enough. If there's anything that you think I've missed, please leave a comment in the comment section below. I'm sure we'll be dissecting everything over the next week or couple of weeks, so there's still plenty of time to talk about everything. Thank you for watching this video. If you have enjoyed it, then please give it a big old thumbs up. Don't forget to share on social media, and of course do hit that bell so that you know whenever I upload a new video. So from me, mwah, to you all, and goodbye.